Okay, folks, so before we get on to our student presentations, you're going to hear a little bit about what we did this arc from myself. So, this is not an exhaustive account of all that we did. It is a glimpse, it is a few highlights, it is a window into our world here as members of the Citrine Band. So, as you know, we started our journey this year in the woods. And as we re-entered into school, I was curious, how are we going to get from this to this? Or how are we going to get from the picture on the left to the picture on the right? Is one of my challenges. Well, my first answer was exercise. Every single day, we started with an exercise program that helped elevate our heart rate, strengthen our joints, and just generally get our wiggles out so that we can stay focused in our band space. Another thing that we did to ease the transition into school was to make many forays to Mountain Lake Park. Mountain Lake is a recently restored park here in the Presidio that has all kinds of waterfowl and creatures that live in its waters. These creatures could not stay hidden from us. We went in there with all kinds of nets and buckets, and we did full immersion naturalizing. Where we got muddy, we got in there, we were pulling things out, and we got up close and personal with all the creatures that were living there in Mountain Lake. One of the things we did right off the bat was find the Park Service's invasive crayfish trap. The crayfish trap was something that we visited every time we went out there. We would remove crayfish. We realized that we were checking the trap more than the Park Service was. Started bringing the crayfish back to the band space. Started baiting the crayfish trap ourselves with catfish and other things. And we even made our own crayfish trap out of some of the industrial cloth left over from the wish box that we made for the Phoenix bird, the firearm. While we were out there, not only did we meet different kinds of animals, we met scientists that were working on the water quality of the lake. We interviewed them, asked them questions, and it turns out that a lot of the water tests that they were doing on the lake are similar water tests that we were doing back in the band space. We also met naturalists out at the lake that we showed our crayfish to, and back swimmers and amphipods and all the fungal crustaceans that we had pulled up with our nets. Here's a drawing of cicadas from our naturalist friend that we made. While we walked to and fro from the park, we came across mushrooms. I don't know if you know this about Citrine Band, but we really love mushrooms. And I don't know if you all know this, but the proper way to pronounce them in Citrine Band is marsh leaves. So we would find, that's what I'm talking about. So we would find them all over the place and try to identify them, bringing them back into the band space. Here we have Remy holding a couple of different mushrooms. I think the one on the right is a bluet, and the one on the left is a, yes? Shaggy parasol, there we go. So lots of cool things to encounter just along the way to and fro from the park. We get back from the park and we dive in to investigate what it was that we found. What's in this water? Down at the park, doesn't look like there's much in there. We would bring it back to the band space and we'd start investigating to see what creatures we had brought back with us. Lots and lots of crustaceans. You can see that there's crayfish on the left there, and then Atticus and Dash, they're also slurping up crustaceans. These are very small shrimp relatives that are living in Mountain Lake Park that we had an opportunity to collect and observe and use to improve the health of our fish tanks. Here we have Remington checking out one of the freshwater crustaceans. This is an amphipod. It's a relative of a shrimp. If you see beach hoppers down at Ocean Beach in the sand, these are also relatives of them. And here we have a little video of one of our crayfish that we're bringing back from Mountain Lake Park. These crayfish are very abundant, and they are non-native, and covered in leeches. So we had an interesting foray into figuring out how we could de-leech them. And so if you remember from last year, Citrine Band's really into removing leeches off of animals to help them out. And so we figured out a process to de-leach these crayfish as well. And we figured out how to identify their different sexes. We housed them accordingly, bred them, and we had baby crayfish that were born just about a month ago in the band space. In order to house all of the aquaria for observing these animals, we needed to build tables. Here's an example of the tables that we assembled to do so. This is how it started off, and this is a messy view of how it's going so far. A lot has changed. Once these aquaria were set up where we can observe all the different animals, we just got to sit back and relax. It is incredibly calming and educational, really, just to watch pond creatures doing what they do. And it's the philosophy of learning from brooks instead of books. It was very valuable, very calming, and a very nice experience for us to do back at the band space. Here we have one of the animals that we identified when we brought them back. This is a freshwater anemone. Okay, these are relatives of ocean anemones. They live in freshwater. The reason they're green is because they are holding algae inside of their bodies. So if they can't catch a little shrimp with their tentacles, they can photosynthesize and they can get food from that. And this is one of the many things that we did not know was living in the water, right in the park right over there, but we identified by bringing the water back to the band space and observing it. Okay, and bear with me. So, a lot of time spent watching, investigating, observing, seeing what we could do to make sure that the animals have a nice time in our band space. Now it was time to get serious. We wanted to start making aquarium. We were inspired by bottle aquaria, an aquarium that's just in a small bottle and it doesn't really need a filter, that much input. But to do that, we needed to start with some inspiration. So we went to the web and we started researching experts that have a lot of experience with bottle aquaria. And here's one expert that made this slide. And they said that bottle aquarium are not miniature aquariums. It is not a hobby to keep fish. Bottle aquariums are a hobby for learning and understanding living things, ecosystems, biodiversity, and the global environment. And another inspirational slide for us was this one. To love the transition of nature, enjoy trial and error, learn from failure, and to take your time. Delayed gratification was a huge one this year. To be able to achieve our goal, we needed to understand ecology and the nutrient cycle. I'm not going to walk through this right now, but just know that to get to where we are now, we needed to thoroughly understand that, and why we needed to understand why the words large animals is written small, while small animals is written large, why photosynthesis needs to be a major player, and why we want nutrient levels to be low. If you're interested in more details, please come by our band space for Expo Night. Not only did we need to understand science, we had to have an understanding of the artistic element that was involved with making aquaria. Balance, flow, the rule of thirds, and such. Mostly, a flow to the eye is what we focused on. So how is the viewer's eye being moved around your aquaria in the same way that a painter thinks about these kinds of things when they're designing their image? We thought about when we were sketching out our aquarium designs. Another very important thing we had to understand was water chemistry. Not all water is the same. We learned that the hard way. It is very alkaline and very hard, the water here in Mountain Lake. The water that we drink is from Hetch Hetchy, mountain water. It's very soft. Crayfish weren't doing well. So we had to get good at water chemistry and doing water chemistry tests, water chemistry, mineral adjustments, and the such. When we were testing for general hardness. We also tested for carbonate hardness and, of course, pH. And we had to adjust all of our water that we were making for our fish tanks so they would suit the animals that they were intended for. It wasn't as easy as just dechlorinating a little bit of tap water. And we learned that not all water is equal. So just because it's clear and it looks nice doesn't mean it's going to be the same. And as I said before, one animal might do well in one kind of water and not so well in the other. We didn't just keep it serious. We had time for fun and games. And I don't have the stereo hooked up here, but I'm just going to show you a little clip for when we paused doing our water stuff and did something for the community, made our school a better place. So we made a haunted hallway for Halloween, and it felt so good to do something for the rest of the school when we burnt the Phoenix that we wanted to put in some effort to make our band space nice. So here's a little view, even though you're not really going to hear any of the sounds going on, but we took some time to put this situation together for Halloween. Here we got into lasers and black lights and fog machine, and there was a guessing game at the end where you had to guess the amount of freshwater shrimp that we had in a container. There they are, the little Daphne. As far as the written word is concerned, we read the novel Beyond the Bright Sea together and discussed it as a group, and we also took the Brightworks Times very seriously. So we would read and discuss and then also write articles for the Brightworks Times. Here we have a few examples, a poem from the band, an article from Juniper about drawing, and an article about the history of Halloween, as well as a write-up about the Caterolympics. There we go, from the Caterolympics. What were the Caterolympics? Well, we found a handful of yellow tussock moth caterpillars, brought them back to the band space, and the students started doing Olympic activities for them. So we decided to measure their speed, and if you can see the table behind, it shows how our results for our speed measurements, and you can imagine all the background work that went into being able to do this. We also got into doing some good old-fashioned data collection when we wanted to know how many pieces of candy that the school gathered during Halloween. And another example is making different fish that were identical to each other, but a different size so that we could explore proportions and scale. Again, not an exhaustive survey, but a little glimpse into some of our math explorations. We went on excursions, we went to many fish shops. This picture here is of Juniper at a fish shop in the Fillmore that we walked to. It was a very special place that we gained a lot of inspiration from. Then came expression. Here we have a nice expression from Reed. If you spend as much time with him as I have with a mask, you can tell that he's saying a lot, but from this picture you can't really tell. Our project phase started with writing a declaration, a project proposal, if you will, which involved a mission statement, a production goal, skill goal, a learning goal, and then also a rubric for self-evaluation. After the declaration was complete, we got into the world of project management, where we practiced splitting goals into objectives and then into tasks. And we also explored expository writing. Once we were up and going, we got into doing some research. Conveniently, we have a library across the street where we could go to get information for our projects or for our essays. Here we have Dash taking notes from one of his library books. We have Theodore getting some good essay or some research for his documentary movie, and Sylvester drawing a mangrove tree life cycle. As I said, the 5-paragraph expository essay was an interesting and new spin on what we had been doing this year. Hands-on projects. Well, we got our hands in there. You've got some messiness here with some of the Flex Seal, or not Flex Seal, but expanding foam on Beckett's hands. And then here we have Lou, who tried her hand at electronics because of its relatedness to the fish that she was studying. We have David checking out our crayfish touch tank.
It's open if you want to see it.
It'll be open, yes, and most definitely true, come up during Expo. And we couldn't have done this without the amazing Amina, who came and helped us out in the afternoons. And so she was wonderful in helping us achieve all of our goals. So folks, get ready to hear about aquatic animal skeletons from Juniper, the fabulous world of black ghost knives from Lou, to learn about soap making from Atticus, to hear about a Mountain Lake Park documentary from Theo, to learn about brackish water aquaria from Beckett and Sylvester, and to hear about a super paludarium from Dash and Remy. Thank you. All right, now there's a round. All right, next up we have Lou Furman. Round of applause for Lou Furman. Thank you.
Welcome to the fabulous world of black ghost knives. At first, my production goals were making an environment for black ghost knives, making a poster of them, and writing an essay about them. My skill goals were working on my writing, understanding complicated subjects, and managing my project. Also, my learning goals were learning about electrical communication, and of course, learning about black ghost knives in general. My friend Sylvester and I started this fish tank together. He started a new project, and we agreed this one's going to have black ghost knives in it. I've learned way more than I expected, like the fact that black ghost knives can talk with electricity. Writing the essay was challenging as I missed 2 weeks of school because of extra vacation. I was visiting Argentina since half my family lives there. The best part of my essay was that all my bandmates were there to help me because of the extra vacation. And the best part of my project was that I could get some fish about 3 weeks before expo night and the other fish about 5 days after that. I had to start slowly because I was waiting for the bacterial bloom to happen. Bacteria will eat fish poop and therefore clean the water in their fish tank. However, the fish has to be transferred into the tank after the bacterial bloom and not before. If you put a fish in a tank before the bacterial bloom, it'll probably die. In the end, I accomplished my 3 goals and learned a lot more. Communication has many forms. For example, humans communicate verbally and non-verbally. Black-ghost snakes, similar to the electric eel, communicate via electrical signals, and scientists have developed an instrument to measure these. Questions, comments, or thoughts? Mostly in the Amazon basin. Like they live in the Amazon basin mostly. Sure. How did I learn about them? So I went to a fish shop and then we just saw this really cool fish. You saw black ghost knights, and then me and some sister just looked at the name and we liked it. Franklin.
How did they get the name?
What?
How did they get the name?
I don't know. Lily. Juniper.
Why is the bacterial
Because if you put a fish into a tank before the bacterial bloom, the bacterial bloom will happen while they're inside the tank, and that might kill the fish. But one upper fish actually survived during the bacterial bloom, and so did a crayfish. It's in the touch tank if you want to see it.
That's my sister right there.
Yeah, she's.
What happens if you keep the fish in the bacterial bloom and put the fish still in when the bacterial bloom starts?
Well, I just said that, and the fish will probably die because of the bacteria. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Lou. Wonderful black ghost knights. They talk to each other with electricity, believe it or not. Oh, we're still in the presentation. All right, Atticus, come on down. Where are you at, Atticus? All right. My God.
Hello, my name is Atticus, and my water art project is to make soap. I was working from home, so it was a little more difficult to get resources, and I didn't write an essay. So my production goal was to make soap. My skill goal was to try to simplify a soap reaction, and my learning goal was to try and learn a new chemistry experiment. I made a mold, and I modeled it in Tinkerpad, which is a 3D modeling software, and made this. It's with a 3D printer. It's smooth with access notes, so it's nice and smooth, but it still has some ridges. Then I made a tray out of the 3D printer most of it was spent researching and how to make it. I think the best part was modeling the robot, the soap robot in Tinkercad, and pouring the silicone in the mold, and I got to work with silicone for the first time. Some of the obstacles were that my first batch, I did the math wrong because I had to scale down my mold. The batch had soap, but the soap was very oily and it was like earwax and it was floating in oil. And another one, as I already said, was that the mold still had some thin lines, not a ton, but it was. I think what I should do next time was to maybe smooth it a little longer in acetone paper. In the end, it was very fun to learn about chemistry and try to make soap. And one of the reasons you would want to make soap is because you get to learn about life safety, learn how to handle pH, and you get to make some soap. Some of the things I might want to do if I needed to do it again would be to buy more castor oil. I made a third batch and I ran out of castor oil, and buy some coloring since all my soap is not colorless. Any questions? Sylvester's dad. I forgot the name.
What do you do with the oils? Do you make different soaps, or do you need all those oils?
I mixed all the oils together since the recipe asked for it, and I just mixed it together. It's nice. Bodhi. What is lye? Lye is a chemical that's, you know what acid is? It's some stuff that can burn for you. Well, it's the opposite. It can still burn you, and it can burn you. It's a chemical that can burn you. Angela. Can you tell us a little bit about how you make the molds? The molds? So, have you seen this? I printed it out, and then I built a tray wheel. And then I poured some silicone into it. It was, fun. How did you print that out? Is that a 3D? Yeah, I used a 3D printer. Yeah. I want to help. Anyone else? Marlo. I probably just did the math wrong, and probably since also
Could you repeat the question?
it was too oily because I think I added food coloring, which the lye ate it up, so some of the chemicals didn't work, and it had some extra chemicals, and I think also maybe I did the math wrong to scale down. Thank you, everyone.
Good job, thank you, Atticus. Who knew? Who knows? Some oil and some lye. You mix it together, you can wash your hands. All right, next we have Theo in Modern Day Art Academy. Coming all over, Theo. Thank you, audience, for being so supportive and asking such wonderful questions.
Hello, everyone. My name is Theo, and this is my presentation. In the beginning, my production goal was to make a 7-minute movie with 4 animals, and in the documentary telling them what the animals ate. My skill goal was editing and making movies, and my learning goal was learning how to make a movie on iMovie and how to edit. The first thing that I did for making my documentary was I started doing research. The first animals that I researched was the largemouth bats, then the crayfish, then ducks. I also put mergansers is another animal. I just forgot to put that in. And then I put that research into a script. Right now, I am taking footage of the animals at Untitled Park, and I am doing a voiceover. It was really fun doing research and typing the essay, and my essay topic for my documentary is my script. The obstacles I will chance I will go to Mountain Lake Park to get footage for the ducks and hidden reviewers. Those were the only animals that we needed to film at Mountain Lake Park, and for some reason, iMovie it deleted some of my footage, so I have to just slightly remake the movie again. And then my favorite part was filming and editing, even though I haven't finished. And then, I haven't finished my movie, so I don't know, but come to see it at Expo Night. Reflection. I did do more animals. I haven't finished my movie, so I don't know if it'll be 7 minutes long. And I haven't learned how to edit. Any questions? Jennifer.
What was your favorite animal that you learned about?
Probably the largemouth bat. Frank.
What was the most deadly animal?
None of them are deadly, but crayfish are probably the worst. Rodent.
Did you film any mermaids?
Did I what?
Did you film any mermaids?
No. Read.
What? We didn't see the presentation.
What did I what?
Where did we get to see the presentation? We just did.
Come to Expo.
Thank you, everybody. Come on down to Expo Night and you'll be able to see Theo's finished movie. We had an issue with iMovie and we had to remake it, so we're going to work hard to make sure that we have something for you on Thursday. All right. And next, we've got Sylvester, Reed, and Beckett with their presentation. Come on down, Sylvester, Beckett, and Reed. All right, folks, are we ready? All right, here we go.
Hi everyone, I'm Sylvester. These are my friends Beckett and Reed. This is our presentation. Hope you enjoy it. In the beginning, our production goal was to make a brackish fishing, and we wrote some essays out of estuaries and the animals that live in them. Our skill goal was build an advanced fishing without much help, plus project management and teamwork. Our learning goal was to learn about estuaries in general. So for when we started this project, we had to find a fish tank we wanted. And when we decided on it, we ended up having bad silicone, so we had to cut it off and reapply it, otherwise we were afraid it might leak. What's done so far is that we've got a lot of the plants, and we have the main hardscape. We're just waiting on a couple more plants to put the water in, and probably a bit more rocks. And you can see in the pictures us making the hardscape. And so you know our estuary essays, we found these fun facts. Sylvester noticed that white mangroves, black mangroves, and red mangroves are not really closely related. I figured out that sunflower sea stars are quick, which is questionable, efficient, also questionable hunters, at a moving speed of 3.3 feet per minute with 15,002 feet. They are normally found on earthen barrens. one of the obstacles was, like, as Beckett said, the tank was going to leak, so it would either leak and kill the fish or pollute the water and kill the fish, or both. And another was that the place we were getting the mangroves is really far away, so because of the cold weather, we couldn't get them in time. Rich had to buy another set of mangroves, and we're still waiting on the first order.
So in the end, we have not finished the project yet, but we can show you what we made so far.
We haven't finished the project yet, but we hope that it's done by Expo Night so you can see what we've been doing for the past couple of weeks. If it's not done, you can see the mangroves, the moss balls, the hardscape, and some of the fish we're going to put in there. You can also see our essays and the poster of the mangroves that I made. Any questions? Yeah?
So what kinds of fish like in estuaries and brackish waters?
What?
What kinds of fish live in brackish waters?
Well, there are pufferfish, guppies, gobies, and reedfish, and I said a couple more in my essay. Mangroves do live in estuaries. Any other questions? Yes, Beck? An estuary is a place where there's brackish water. Brackish water is what happens when salt water and fresh water mix. Anybody else? Okay. Thanks.
Good job, Brackish Boys. All right. And next, we've got Super Paludarium. This is going to be our last presenter. This is going to be our last presenter, so hold tight. And then soon it's going to be Quartz Band. Thank you. Yeah, round of applause for Dash and Remy.
Hi, I'm Dash. And I'm Remy. For our water art project, we made a paludarium for frogs to live in. A paludarium is like a terrarium. A paludarium is like a terrarium that has water on the bottom. So in the beginning, we wanted to make a paludarium for frogs with expanding foam and flex seal. We would also write a 300-word essay. You can learn more about, and Remy's writing about chytrid fungus, and I'm writing about frogs in general. You can learn more about what chytrid fungus is in Remy's essay. We wanted a water pump to pump the water from the bottom up to make a waterfall. And we wanted to look like something like it looks like in the picture, except smaller. So what we did is we made a cage to hide the pump. This is us cutting the cage for the pump to sit in the back of the tank. We made the cage so that the pump cannot be seen and can also be accessed, cleaned, or changed. This is what it felt like when we were trying to install a cage and cut the cage. This is what it looks like when we attach the cage to the tank. If you can see, there is a PVC tube that we added so we could direct the water from the waterfall. But we originally wanted egg crate, which is a plastic thing that holds a pump usually. But Rich found a metal crate on the street, so we decided to use that because that was our easiest option. Once we attached the cage with silicone, we put the driftwood in to see what the tank would look like. Then we added the expanding foam. We added the foam so that it would look more natural, and it would also hold the driftwood in place.
We carved the foam into the shape that we wanted it to look like and so that the waterfall could fall in a more natural way.
Then we talked to Dr. Andrew, which is a professional on frogs and constructing paludariums, and also is a former student of Rich.
Then we added this Flex Seal, which is liquid rubber to the foam. The Flex Seal acts like you can stick this coconut fiber onto it, which is going to make the thing look like dirt, so it looks more natural.
The Flex Seal and the expanding foam was so hard to work with because both of them are super sticky. As you saw in Becca's presentation, he had all over his hands, and it's really difficult to get off.
Some of the obstacles we faced were adding the Flex Seal to all of the surfaces of the foam, because foam has a lot of surfaces to cover. And we had to wait for this coconut fiber to dry because it came in as a brick, so we had to put water on it so that it would loosen up, and then in order to stick it to the Flex Seal, we'd have to let it dry out. And also, when you open a can of expanding foam, you have to use the whole thing. That's why we have these mounds. So we couldn't just add a little bit in one place and then wait for it to dry and add a little bit in another. We'd have to go everything at once.
And this is the essay experience. Dash enjoyed writing this essay, which is about frogs and everything in general. I did enjoy writing my essay, but it wasn't my favorite part.
My favorite part of the project was writing my essay, and Remy's favorite part was adding the Flex Seal to the foam and adding the coconut fiber and the sand onto it.
And this is what we have so far. You can see we have added some moss, and there's going to be some more plants, which Dr. Andrew, which we talked about, is sending us.
Now, before we go to any questions, you should know this. Frogs can eat anything that can fit in their mouth, and some do so. So be careful of the next slide. This frog is not big enough to eat you,
But this one is. Any questions? Lily?
Once your cake finished, are you going to add frogs to it?
Yeah, we're going to have poison dart frogs or Pacific chorus frogs. Oh, Josh.
Can that frog actually eat us?
No, there's no frog big enough in the world to eat a human. Mackenzie. Well, I learned this from Dash, because he was researching about frogs. There's only a few types of actual poison dart frogs, but there's more frogs that have poison. Read that.
Did you get the waterfall to work?
Yeah, the waterfall is working.
Yeah, we have a pump that pumps water up and then it comes down. And we also have a filter so that it filters as it pumps. Frankie.
Are you proud of your project?
Yes?
What was the question again? Can you say the microphone?
Are you proud of your project?
All right.
Read one more. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. One more big round of applause for the whole entire Citrine Band. That's right. If you're not impressed, I don't know what to say. So, folks, we've got to get ready for quartz band presentations that are happening in 12 minutes. So I'm going to ask, first of all, I want to thank all the family members and parents and everybody that came down in the middle of the day to see these presentations. We worked really, really hard on them, and we're very happy that you're here. And so thank you very much.